Holy shit, we got a lot to talk about this week, guys. We got Trump getting shot at, and Biden is still questioning what his name is.
And what about Alec Baldwin getting off?
I
Just
think
like we predicted, by the way.
Yeah, but we're going to be talking about near-death experiences, which is a perfect topic with these recent headlines. Chris, what do you think? Will this week bring more or less drama?
A lot of work, less drama, but a lot of work this week, I think.
All right, let's get into it.
There are so many people that are disconnected from their internal guidance. My mission is to change that.
I don't just talk stuff and repeat stuff. I'm living this stuff.
I'm your Carol Master and Bad Vibe Blaster.
And you can thank me for covering your Astro.
Leading out loud. Leading out loud. Leading out loud.
Welcome back, friends, and welcome to Leading Out Loud, which we like to call LOL, where we laugh out loud and talk about things. And this is my Motley crew here. You know everyone from the opening, so we won't say it again. And what a freaking week. We're going to talk about everything today, diving in. It's been a crazy few days. There's been so much on the news about Biden, whether or not he's going to drop out. And then, of course, we had the Trump shooting, which was strange. We'll talk about that. And ironically, we, thought about doing a near-death experience episode, and here Trump almost had one. But we want to talk about, leading into this. First, should we just dive right into the Trump thing real quick and just do our 360 on it? There's a lot of weird stuff around it because it's like, the guy was, climbed up in plain sight. Trump paused to do like a fist bump to the crowd 3 times, like. One guy was like, there's a shooter on the roof, and no one really noticed that. So I'm just wondering psychically, just to roundtable right away, just using our powers, what do you pick up on? And I'll go last here as what's going on. You think this is authentic? Some people say it was set up.
Yeah, I think it's authentic. I mean, I think it's real. I just think that I feel like, and again, I feel. I'm not saying I know for sure, but I feel like they knew, and I feel like, the aversion to kind of doing something about when people are showing the killer on the roof, the shooter on the roof, they really didn't rush to do anything about it. So something there might be some corruption in the Secret Service on protecting Trump in a sense. So I feel like maybe half knew, just didn't want to prevent it. And, but the timing is also odd too, which I understand why people might think it is staged because the timing, the Republican convention is tonight, right? So it just seems kind of like very coincidental in timing. But I feel like the more we're awakened to the Matrix, right, we could feel like we could see like things are kind of scripted with the more we awaken to the Matrix. So, but it feels legit to me. Devin,
we got a legit crazy person trying to kill him, and you're saying Secret Service had an order to stand down.
I feel like it's like half and half. Like half of them knew and didn't do anything. The other half were not. You know what I'm saying? It feels like that to me for some reason.
Yeah.
Well, I was definitely getting this is 100% a real shooting. They knew it was a heavy threat. In fact, there was a movement to reduce security for Trump for quite a while now and take away Secret Service. So they've been aware for a long time this was a threat. They were on alert for it. But I do feel like there's some really shady holes in how this happened. There's all that footage of them trying to alert people that there was someone on the roof there. And so, this is a really, really sad state that we are all in. And the main thing that I was getting from the angels about this is that, you have to take that 30,000 foot perspective. People died. This was very dangerous. And you've got both sides shouting at each other, but in the end, this was a real life-threatening risk that we saw here live on camera. And there was also this idea that, this could have been prevented and it wasn't. And, ultimately anybody's going to take whatever opportunity they can of this. So you can say, oh, well, Trump is capitalizing on this, but you could also say that if it had, gone in any other direction or it happened to anybody else, they would have as well. So the very fact that we are in the middle of this political season, everybody's going to be capitalizing. So I just think that's a mute argument there. That's my opinion there. But the angels are saying, don't take that perspective. Go 30,000 foot. What about you, Chris?
Yeah, I think there's like two sides here. Kind of like Scott said, I think there's like two things going on with the Five of Wands conflict. This to me, I feel like something's going to come out about this, around the whole situation. Obviously, I think it was real. It was real. But yeah, I think there's like two sides going on here. And you also have justice as well as the outcome. So, I think that we will probably hear more about this. So I would say that there's going to be more details, maybe justice in this situation. But yeah, it looks like two sides, like two different factions going on here that wanted two different things. Yeah.
Well, it's I had predicted a tidal wave that would change history. That was my prediction for the week, and I expected at the end of the week. But as soon as the sun went to 22 degrees, like within minutes, the attempt was made. So that was fascinating because Trump is a 22-degree Gemini. Mars is also at 22 degrees. So there was, that's basically something's going to snap in that energy. Right. What I felt psychically was that Trump was prepared for this moment. That he has been expecting someone to take a shot at him, and I feel like he had sort of rehearsed the fist bump in his mind. Like if that ever happens, this is how I'm going to go down. I almost feel like maybe even their entire election team was like, all right, well, if they ever take a shot at you, you do a fist bump and say, fight. Like that's going to be our. So I feel like there was a definite rehearsal there. It was weird though. Like I thought they rushed you off stage, not stopped and did a fist bump first. Like, and what the hell? He lost it. Was he not wearing his shoes? What was with the shoes thing? He's like, let me get my shoes. They're like, okay. Like I guess that's normal.
Did he hit so hard it blew his shoes off? I was like, what's going on here?
There was some suspicion that that might have been a code.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, it was like a code word.
I'm such a simpleton.
Well, no, I mean, it could. It doesn't. It wouldn't make sense that for him to not have shoes on. But I mean, maybe he did for some reason. Maybe it really is just it was hot and he was. I mean, if you've been shot at, no matter how many times you've practiced, if you've been shot at, you're not going to be the most clear with what you're saying, I mean, this is what's so interesting about the topic we have tonight with near-death experiences is, I mean, you're not exactly clear in those moments. Even the people behind him on the stands are looking around like, what's happening? I mean, I was so fascinated watching the footage over and over again of the people behind them not ducking more. I mean, you want to say as a bystander, like, I would have been down on the ground, but they didn't even fully understand what was going on.
I mean, there were people ducking like with their phones. Like, well, I saw this one girl. I'm like, what's she doing? She's like ducking while she's still recording. Like, people just respond really weird in stressful circumstances like that. But I agree. Right, like he's going down and I'm going down too. And so I really feel like it was interesting. I'm like, why is he still standing there so long? Like why is he getting off quicker? And so it felt in a sense, I've been saying like last year, I was surprised no one's tried to assassinate him. I've almost been kind of waiting for that, intuitively, because it felt like I'm surprised it hasn't already. So I think if I've been expecting that, I'm sure he's been expecting that. And I agree with Christopher, kind of like planning out what would happen and like, let's take the pictures. And I mean, so ironically, like these pictures are so picture perfect, actually, so it's an interesting moment.
Yeah. Our producer's asking about a picture of a Secret Service woman ducking behind a barrier. And, they haven't, there's something definitely fishy with the Secret Service. I mean, they're not giving any service to Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and his dad and his uncle both were assassinated under Secret Service watch.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think there's something weird going on. Psychically what I felt a couple things psychically. I'm just going to be bold and put it out there. One is that I felt that this was this kid who did it was programmed. It feels that way. To be honest. It feels like the kid was programmed, to do it. It was a bold, crazy, insane idea, to pull that off. And the other thing I felt was that there was a stand down order. That there was a stand down order, to make to take a hit. And I think if you listen to RFK's talk about his father and what he knows, he knows that it was the Secret Service officer that killed him. In front of him, from what they understand. So it's like, anyways, I think it's time we just start to, be pretty honest about this. It's a very interesting moment. That the timing is strange too.
Yes.
But, it was so convenient of them to shoot him before the convention so that we could have someone else chosen, that was interesting too. Right.
Right.
So it's a compelling moment. And then, of
Yeah.
course, what's also interesting is that I didn't hear how Biden responded, but of course, everyone was talking about Biden's performance in the debate, and
Mm.
this just flipped the headlines, completely, which is interesting too. So, all right, we're all just
Yeah.
gonna.
No, that's a good
Well,
point
there goes
about
that one.
flipping the script, but I do think that we're in that time of year with these campaigns where things get really, really nasty, and the angels want us to step back as humans and people who love our country and go, wait a minute, this is not okay. This is not what we signed up for. This is not what we fought for. So no matter who you really support, you do at some point have to step back and go, this is not human. Like the stuff we're seeing here on these headlines, this is a bunch of staging. There's a bunch of rhetoric, and you do really have to check in with your intuition. That's what we've been talking about a lot on these shows since this show started, right, guys? Like when you
Yep.
see these things, don't just go run and read the first news article you see. You've got to
Yeah.
stop and really check in.
Yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. But it looks like, so talk about, he's protected or something like
Mm.
that. From what I'm hearing, I haven't watched the footage. I've heard more people talk about it, but from what I hear, he like moved his head at the exact perfect time.
Yeah.
For the bolt to
Millimeters.
go.
He got really
Yeah.
adamant. He turned to point to a screen.
Yeah.
And so he had been very forward, and then he
Mhm.
turned to point to a graphic from what I could tell on the footage, and that's when it grazed his ear.
Mhm.
Jeez.
I mean, doesn't that feel like angelic protection there, or some kind of intuitive like turn? Like you gotta, yeah.
God,
But
where are
he was
you?
also like really in the moment. Like you also have to think about that too. Like no matter who you are on any side, if you watch a candidate that's powerful, it doesn't matter whether you're on their side or not. When they're really in their version of divine flow, I do think they can hear things like duck. I do think
Yeah,
that
of course.
when-
It's intuitive.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
intuitive.
yeah.
Yeah.
Something takes over.
Mhm.
I do think when you are protected, something takes over for
Right.
sure.
Mhm.
And even when you make mistakes and you break a limb, something takes over. Like
Right.
it goes both ways.
It's
In
so
that sort of
true.
sense.
We're going to talk
But
about that
it's
tonight.
interesting. I thought that the election was going to get steamier and steamier once Pluto went into
Mhm.
Capricorn. I don't know, man. I'm just got the popcorn now. I'm like, Jesus,
Yeah.
opening act assassination attempt. Holy moly! As far as the intensity of the emotion right now, and so let's guide way into the the energy of the week.
Sure.
This whole week to me is a tidal wave astrologically. The reason is
Mm.
that first of all, we had the 22, which always shakes things up. Now, I thought that would just sort of initiate and piss people off. I didn't realize someone would try to be assassinated on that day. But then we go from that 22 to today. Mars and Uranus are conjoining. That's a huge agitator. So it pulls emotions up even higher from in the Cancer perspective. Then on Wednesday, Pluto drops to 0. Now, the importance of Pluto at 0 is it's anything goes energy. So people suddenly have they just feel like they can trespass, or they just suddenly feel they have the right. Like, so it's a very, combined with the emotions, a bit of a dangerous, wild card, basically, it's that happens. And then the sun sextiles Uranus on Thursday. At that point, we get another jolt of Uranus we're getting today. And then we go to a full moon in Capricorn over the weekend. And the full moon is at, 29 degrees Capricorn, the same degree that Pluto will return to on September 1st. So I feel like this week is an astrological launch to the chaos we're going to see in September.
Interesting.
Mm.
And don't we have Mercury going into shadow on Tuesday, right? So it does feel like things are going to slow down. Yeah, the angels were talking about a lot of us are having to change our plans. We're realizing there's poor timing with things. Maybe you're finding yourself having conflict with others, competing goals. So if that's you, the angels' guidance here is to have a patient and loving approach to these people. Of course, headlines like this bring up a lot of emotion in people, and people start really speaking out. Maybe people who didn't before. That can cause a lot of conflict. You might realize you're working with somebody that has totally different values and you never knew till now. And the angels are saying you might feel like you really need to make a decision around this, but they're also saying you might have too much going on to make the right decision. So the key thing to remember here is to get curious. If you have somebody who's saying something to you that you don't agree with, just ask them a question. Why do you think that? Where did you hear that? Or if you feel like you can't trust somebody, like look at their track record. Is this somebody who always says something and does the opposite? So really try to lead by example. And I do have a pocket affirmation for you. If you want to really ground yourself with all these crazy headlines, it is, I am logical and curious. I am logical and curious. And that way, when you're in these confrontational conversations or you're seeing things on X or Instagram, you can really ground yourself, but also be innovative. What are you getting, Scott?
ILG. I am logical and curious. Oh, no, is it
IALAC? I forgot to give it to you.
IALAC. It's like Rolaids.
IALAC. Yeah, I love that one. I wish they had the abbreviation on there. No, I actually agree with you. For me, I this week is kind of resolution over conflicting ideas. So I feel like, you might feel a little, opposition in your relationships, especially with yourself and competing ideas with yourself. But I feel like you're going to find a power, or at least the intellect, to decipher what it is and come to a good resolution. So I think this is a good week of resolution. And I think that I would say for most people who are being objective and having discernment and understanding how to communicate and finding a happy medium between you and the person that you're trying to resolve things with, you'll be successful. I mean, I actually resolved something with a Cancer this morning, so that's pretty good. Aquarius and Cancer, resolution. So I think if you're paying attention to the different competing ideas within yourself, within your relationships, and coming from a middle ground, you might actually create great resolution from different competing ideas. So I think it's a great week for that, and so, like I said, even not just with relationships, with even with yourself, because so many people want to do two things at once. You might find a way to make it more cohesive in your life too. So really simple for me in this week. What do you think, Chris? What's the card saying on that one?
I think it's a good week for other people, getting help from people in your life. 3 cups, 10 of cups. I have the 17th popping into my head. The 17th might be a little bit of a spicy day. I'm getting with the 7 of Swords. I think people need to kind of tread carefully around that day. 17th, something like that.
Little drops to 0.
Well, there you go. So probably could be something on that day. Other than that, I think really good week for socializing and also breakthroughs on the 10 of Cups. 10 of Cups is like fortune after difficulty. And sometimes we can have a breakthrough by just focusing on the bright side. Like they're choosing to not focus on the craziness. They're still in the real world, but they're focusing on the 10 Cups. So I always say focus on the bright side with the 10 of Cups, no matter what's going on. And, that would probably lead to a better week for everybody.
So when you say the 17th, someone close to me is having a colonoscopy that day. Any advice?
Advice would be, it looks good. Healthy. Fantastic. I think.
I don't know. Little drops to 0.
I would say don't eat a lot on that day, right? Stuff like that. There you go.
There's a bathroom humor. I was really being serious about that, Devin. I know the bathroom humor, but we had to have one. That's true.
Devin loves bathroom humor.
Yeah, very concerned.
Yes, you can't have a good show without a Uranus joke.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, there's an echo on my end. So
check.
Yeah, we've been having a lot of tech issues back and forth the past couple weeks.
We have. It's been weird. It's the power. It's the power between us. So, all right. Well, I think that talks about the week pretty well. That's some good advice from the 4 of us. I agree with all of you implicitly.
That's right.
But it is now time, I think, to hear a word from our sponsor. We're going to talk about near-death experiences. But first, let's bring on a word from God.
Tonight's sponsor is CC Organics, infusing love and blessings into every product. When your skin drinks the healing elements of the plants, you can feel the love. And now a word from our good friends at CC Organic.
I forgot to look.
Since 1995, CC has infused every product with love. Our star is CC Cream, made with kombucha tea, organic and wild-crafted herbs, and essential oils. Its fresh citrus scent appeals to both men and women. Age gracefully with our rehydrating facial serum. Made with organic sea buckthorn berry extract, giving your face a healthy glow. Your skin will love you. Scan the QR code on your screen now for 20% off with promo code LOL.
Smooth.
We love our CG organics.
We do. I
Yeah.
just saw Sanandra, actually. I saw the Sichi factory, if you will, where they force child labor to pray over products. I'm just teasing, actually. They do pray over their products, and the energy is super sacred, too, in her place. It's like a professional kitchen setup, so literally edible, products, and with good vibration. And she really believes in putting love into it. They actually do pray and put love into all their products, which you can feel actually when you try them out. So, people are always asking for, what this is someone we know personally, and who makes the products personally. And I think that's the kind of referral you get here at LOL. So check out Sichi.com. All righty, folks. Well, it's now time for, I think, Devon.
Well, I just wanted to introduce tonight's topic, near-death experiences. This week, we wanted to talk about, they are not uncommon. People think they are, but they're not as rare as you think. There's the Scientific American Research Institute that reports across time and cultures the same exact experiences. About 5 to 10% of the general population have memories of what it's like after life. In fact, a lot of people are calling these death experiences because some of these people have been actually pronounced dead and then come back into our body. So guys, have any of you ever had a near-death experience?
Maybe, actually. So I didn't tell anyone I was going to tell this story tonight, but when I was 10, if you all always ask me what's wrong with me, right? You always ask what's your problem. I hear this every day from all four of you, right?
And we gossip between each other. What is this?
Yeah,
really, not for me. I don't do that.
Not from Scott. Not from Scott. Right?
I get you. We're
right.
here.
Yeah, you get me. But when I was 10, I fell out of my bunk bed in the middle of the night, and I fell on it like a piece of wood, and so I was knocked out. I don't remember anything from that night, but I actually had a medium a few years ago live. I was on a radio show, and he called in. And he said I died when I did this, and I don't know how long I was on the floor or anything. My parents came in and woke me up off the floor. So and it was a pretty good height too. So, but I don't remember it. It was all black. It was darkness.
Wow.
That's it. Yep.
Levitation, huh?
So maybe. Yep.
I think that's when the walk-in happened.
Yeah, probably. After that,
now we got this.
That was it. I started failing school after that. Everything. I was a totally different person. So probably.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
Is that interesting though?
Well, no. I mean, who knows? I mean, Chris is definitely from another world. There's no question about that.
Yeah.
So how you got here is always curious.
Yeah, that's how. Yeah.
Interesting.
Very interesting. Well, I personally never, of course, and I think I told Heaven, I don't need one. I know you exist. We're cool. I don't need to nearly die and to experience the afterlife. I have been, studied this topic a lot. I've had a lot of clients. I've had a couple of guests on Astro Mingle who experienced. I had one woman who had 3 near-death experiences. I personally have my own theory about this, that quite often it's a way of facing your karma of having died. So I feel like if you die suddenly, let's say die suddenly in a war or something, and you can't process the death. Sometimes I feel like we die and come back just as a way of processing the death, right? And that sort of thing. So I think that's sometimes the case. I think in some cases it's people who want absolute proof, which I think is the title of Dr. Alexander's book, which is just he, as a scientist, a neuroscientist, he died, and he believed in neuroscience, and he believed consciousness was in the brain, and he had this whole whole heaven thing, proof of heaven, explained to him as he came back, and he literally is documented with medical science as a miracle, because any doctor would have told you that he had meningitis in the head, that he would have been in a wheelchair, not operational. The amount of damage that would have been destroyed his life forever, and he came back perfectly fine. That's the other thing that happens with NDEs is miraculous healing quite often.
Yeah.
Just impossible to deny. So that's
I think it's interesting too. Like many people, I haven't had a near-death experience per se, but I've experienced through different forms of meditation where, my guides have showed me the different aspects and layers between time and no time, and kind of the different dimensionalities and such. But, a lot of the recounts of people who've had NDEs, they were able to observe what was in the room when they were supposedly dead or when they left the body, and they can recount all the information they would not be able to recount too. I think is a great, I would say, validation of NDEs in a sense.
Yeah,
Right.
that's
So-
true. They describe what was happening when they were resuscitating or whatever.
Right. Or
Yeah.
they heard what the person said, or, they saw something outside of the room they were in a sense. Right. So I think that's great evidence of that. But many people, if you look at who, have NDEs, I think personally, they're healing a lot of like past religious karma, or trying to separate from religious karma that they need to resolve in this lifetime, to understand the differences of spirituality, life, death, and all that great stuff. So, and I notice most NDEs happen to non-believers, I say, and then they become believers after having those experiences. So, and I think that not everyone has to have one, but I think it's very significant when people do have one. It gives a lot more information about their past incarnations, this incarnation, and you see every person having a great NDE, how it's almost like been like life-changing for them. But and then I think you guys heard too, like a lot of them develop like psychic abilities afterwards,
Right.
or become mediums afterwards. Like their psychic awareness goes like explosive. So it's interesting seeing that transformation.
One of the common things too, Scott, is people describe the feeling being very similar as well. It's just all being part of one, unified, this sense of love. Like it's so calming that a lot of people don't even want to come back. It's painful to come back into this experience. I just listened to a podcast, if any of you have heard it, it's called Smartless. It's got Will Arnett, Jason Bateman, Sean Hayes. It's hilarious. But they talk about mainstream things. And they recently interviewed Jeremy Renner about an NDE experience he had, and that was his big take back away from it, is just the love and the people. And he said everything just feels so different now, that the pain, while it was there, it was almost something he could observe instead of have to be fully part of. So it's really fun to see when people in the mainstream will bring these things to the forefront and talk about it like we are here.
No, it's great. Christopher, have you had an NDE? Oh, we actually asked you about that, didn't we? Did you have one?
Yeah, No, I haven't had an NDE. I mean, right before the show, I did. I couldn't set up my I nearly died, but I'm okay. It's okay. Do you think? So here's a question: do you feel like people have a choice to come back or not? Because it feels like most people don't have a choice. They're like, you're going back.
Yeah, see, as a medium, I've always seen this, what Spirit says in these cases, and it depends because, sometimes if it's meant to change the incarnation they are in, then no, they don't have a choice. And many people have described them being pushed back in, like you can't stay and so forth, because they still have a continuing mission. Like I said before, the NDE was there to awaken, to help, complete their current incarnation. And then I think there's some that maybe have had NDEs and their life was complete in a sense, and they've had choices to come back. I've heard that too in many instances. So like everything in reality, it's this and that, not this or that. So I would say yes and no to that.
What do you think about like, do people have exits? Like, I believe I'm gonna die falling up the stairs at 96. It used to be like 83, but it's now it changed to 96. So do you think people have like multiple exits where they can leave or not?
What do you mean exits? Like ways of death?
Do you think people have like multiple points where they could pass or not?
I really feel that we set that up, that we have points in time where it would be easy for us to transition if things aren't going the way we want, if we already feel like we fulfilled what we wanted to. So yeah, I do believe there's a free will aspect there. And a lot of times what you hear reported in these near-death experiences is this conversation about, you don't have to go back, but you will have to go back at some point if you want to learn this lesson and finish this karma. So it's whether you do it now or you do it with a different set of circumstances.
Well, I'm glad you said that too, because I think the karmic circumstances kind of indicate that or not, right? And so sometimes I think we might incarnate and we have a full view of that journey of experience, and sometimes we don't. Sometimes I think there's different times that we can select that or not. So yeah, I think it's a variable of that for sure. I mean, what do you think, Christopher?
I've mentioned it before. The Michael Newton books, Journey of Souls and Destiny of Souls, and the Brian Weiss books just give account after account after account of different circumstances where people chose to come back because they didn't want to leave their children, or they chose to stay because they saw the divine path that was being created. And that's a really hard thing to understand as a grieving loved one. That's why we need you, Scott.
Yeah, I think I missed that.
I think the ones who choose not to come back never come back and report they chose not to come back. So we have skewed numbers on this particular topic. It's for the ones who did come back. I feel like it depends on the case by case. If you have a choice, that means you fulfilled your life's purpose, and you really do have a choice. I do feel exits in people's charts, and I do warn them of exits. Those exits are when your energy can get really, really low, or there's like a pinch point, like
Gotcha.
Energetically, where just you're learning very deep boundaries around life and death, or you're learning core health issues, and if you enter into that phase, very low energy, then you can manifest an exit. I do think people subconsciously manifest exits, or because they want out. I also feel like when you really stop trying and participating, and you want to die, I think people start to let go of life, and so they do become the one that the shooter looks at. Like, not to say it's good, anything's good, but when someone gets killed in one of these horrible events, like we just had here with this particular moment, why? Like that was an exit, really, wasn't it? Like as crazy as it was an exit. That soul, I believe, signed up for it. Of course, it's not near death; that's death.
Right.
Right. I'm not laughing at that person, by the way. I'm just having fun tonight. But anyway, so what about heaven as far as what it looks like? What's your research in regard to that, and your knowledge in regard to that, team?
But I just want to say to dovetail what you were saying is that about the exit points, 'cause I just want to concur in something, is that, when I went through suicidal ideation, I felt like there was like a fork in the road. It didn't feel like I was on it. It's like, do you want to, or do you not want to? What do you want to do here? And so I even grappled with that. You know what I'm saying? And I felt like I chose, well, I'm going to keep going. And so I always felt like those could have been exit points for me too, based on the amounts of trauma I was going through at the time. It was so heavy. And I'm like, well, no, I don't want to have to come back and repeat it. Like, let's go on. Let's continue this, So I definitely felt, especially, and I think a lot of people, when they're having suicidal ideation, they're kind of presented with that fork in the road. Like, what do you choose here? So yeah, Chris, I definitely do think there's different exit points. I've had 3 in my life in that sense.
I think a lot of times people who are suicidal, since we're on this topic, did suicide last life, like that. Like they still have that temptation. They have to overcome it. They have to walk through it. It's because they were successful. A lot of times when I've had clients be honest with me, like I've had ideation like that, and I'm like, I think you did it in the last life. I think, so the good news is you already did it. Like, there's nothing learned by doing it. In fact, this is why you're back, because because you did it. So it's like, you see how it works. So you don't want to do it again, because you do have to finish what you started,
Sure. And I think sometimes like it's also like a way of saying, because the challenge is so amped up and the challenge might be so tough for a lot of people. It's like you do have that way out in a sense. I hate saying that. That's not the excuse, but I think that's why they come up, those exit points. So
yeah, and I wanted to bring up the topic of hypnotherapy and life between life sessions for this episode. Have any of you ever done a life between life session?
No.
So
I don't believe so.
Okay, so I found a hypnotherapist where I did some past life regressions, and he worked under Michael Newton and Brian Weiss and several other leading past life regressionists. And what they do is they guide you to a past life. Then after you pass away, they guide you to the space in between lives where you're doing a life review.
Oh, gotcha.
And you're talking about your purpose now. And it was fascinating. And the part that I experienced was so similar to all these NDEs that you describe, of just peace and love and this kind of pulling sensation too. Like somehow you just know where you're going, and then being greeted by angels and family members. And one of the things that I learned from this is it can be very profound for people who feel like they don't have a purpose. So I highly recommend checking it out. If you're somebody who's like, what's my life purpose? I actually was shown, working with a group of people just like you guys and our team at Serious Joy. I just couldn't see your faces because I had never met any of you yet, but I was shown the work I was going to be doing. And I really wanted to go see a lifetime that I had at Sirius, because I know I have connection with Sirius. And my guys were like, you know what? That's not going to help you right now. We have other things to show you. So if you are somebody that's tried hypnotherapy and didn't quite get the results, you might need to go back in with a different frame of mind instead of having an expectation of the outcome. So do any of you recall past lives at all?
Yeah, and actually, I love what you said that too, because hypnotherapy has been great for past life regressions. I personally do them in my sessions for my clients as well.
Okay.
And yeah, I've had a past life regression come to me through. I'll make it quick. When I was actually doing in Scientology, because when I was doing my religious exploration, there was a pit stop in Scientology, and we did something called auditing, and I had a strong regression that I was in a Christian, a church, and Renaissance period. I felt stabbed 11 times in my chest, and I felt it. And I knew that I was this political figure. I didn't know what it was. And so it felt so real to me. It felt so connected. I even smelt the scent of the church. And I even felt the moisture in the church. Like I was there, and I felt chased. And of course I had a mouth back then too. But I was chased and stabbed because of my ideologies. And so it felt so real to me. I'm like, I don't know what this is. And I was like, so in euphoria for about 2 days. And so I asked my guides, I'm like, am I crazy? Because I don't know what this is. And I said, I need confirmation on this and what this is. And literally the following day, a good friend of mine from school reached out to me randomly and, checked in. I told her about my experience, and she goes, really strange, because I told her I've had this regression where I felt like I was a political leader in a Renaissance period, stabbed 11 times in my chest in a church. And she goes, oh my God, I was teaching my art class about the Medici family. And Giuliano Medici was actually stabbed 11 times in a church, political leader and all stuff. I never heard of that family, and shameful because I'm Italian. I never heard of that person. So even then, that was not enough for me. I'm like, oh, okay, fine. But everyone's a celebrity or some big figure in their past life. I need more confirmation. And about a week later, someone came to me, wanted to do my chakra lining, and she did a past life regression, and she confirmed the same thing. And so I thought that was interesting. I'm like, wow. And I understand now the message from that past life regression and how it relates to this lifetime too. I had others as well. But I think that if you're really interested, and people ask, well, how do you get a past life regression? So I always say, the more you're interested in learning about yourself and your soul evolution, like deeply, like who you are, where you come from, not just from your parents, but from previous incarnations, you'll have a past life regression easily, especially through meditation or even through a dream state. So there's many ways you can actually have a past life regression in that sense.
That's a really good point, Scott. I hear from a lot of people that are really skeptical going into past life regression, that they're like, well, it felt so real, all these emotions came up, it was so vivid, or it was so this or that. And then about a week or so later, when they're recalling it, they're like, actually, that kind of seemed like that movie I saw last month. And they start discounting it. And I would really encourage you not to do that, because your team has to work with what your brain has seen. Wouldn't you say, Scott? I mean, they're going to show you. Chris, Reck, you talk about this all the time, like connecting the dots, right?
Yeah, for things that are happening in your life, and I think a lot of people miss out on connecting the dots, especially things like that. And I think we talked about this last episode as well. There's so many things that have happened to me where, I'll like watch something on TV and then something happens that's like related to it later. And I totally feel the same thing for past life. Like I've met so many people, they'll just like randomly be obsessed with like a random time period, like the Renaissance or something like that. And I'm like, well, you probably were in that time, or you probably had a past life at that time then, because like who is interested in that stuff, right?
That's so true. Obsessions with things from the past is a big thing they talk about in these books. Like just you feel like you know what it was like.
Right. Before Chris, I want to get Chris for a second too, but I just want to add too, many people think that like every past life is grandeur and luxe. It isn't. Sometimes you have a very kind of mundane past life that had some trauma that you're carrying. Like you were, not the best either. So we got to remember that too. Everyone's looking for, was I a queen? Was I a king?
Not everyone's Cleopatra, right?
Or a hooker, So think of hookers. Christopher, what do you think?
I think you were always a queen, Scott.
You damn straight you got that right.
Every lifetime. I don't know. I feel I have the mundanes. I know I try to save the world, and I spend a lifetime up in a cabin having sex, and just living a simple life. Seriously, that's how I am. An
indulgent love walker.
Yeah, love walker. That's where it comes from, man. And then I get back at it, and the in between, I do feel I've read the books that Devon is referring to, and I do feel that's how it is. There is a that in between lifetimes. That's what we were talking about originally here. That we do have this life review. In fact, I have so many times in this life looked up and said, "No, skip past this part." Preparing myself for the life review. It's like, skip past this.
I'm swiping left. Nothing's happening. Swiping left. Nothing's happening.
Happened to the footage.
There's nothing in the records here. You know what I mean? So I do that. Or I'll be like, by the way, Dad, this is what I meant. Like for when he died, like I would send messages to him for heaven. So I've been using it as counting on the life review. But I do also feel like I can feel a lot of times the conversation I had in heaven. So like, I know the conversation I had with my son. I know the conversation I had with a couple other people. Like I remember that conversation where I was like, okay, here's the deal. Come down. I'm up there producing, like, let's do this. We're going to, so I do heavily believe that. I personally have lots of past life memories. We talked about this, I think, last week, but they come to you more in your mid 40s. I found, at least for me, like, so they, and so as it all starts to fill in, and I was talking to you about, Scott, I just saw you and, just saw you, and we were just talking about how it's sort of like the universe arranges like a fireworks display of affirmation. Right. So it's like you have like a flash, and then someone tells you, and then it's affirmed over here, and then affirmed over here. And it's too magical how fast it's affirmed. You're like, whoa, okay, I guess I have. You can't deny it. And I know I have been important people before, and I was in full denial. Like people, when I was first told about being one person important, and I was just like, no, shut up. Like it just did not resonate at all, actually. And then learning the story, I'm like, no wonder I'm denying that fucking lifetime. Like,
I would too if I had that life.
Like, don't tell anybody. So that's the 9 yards. But I do think near-death experiences, coming full circle to our topic here, is ultimately a teaching tool, right? Like, because this is all bullshit anyways, right? We're asleep right now in heaven, hanging out right now on a big, sleepover.
Well, we all had past life connections too, all of us. I mean, Chris and I have a huge history behind us, and we all have history behind us in past lives. So, we've all kind of intermingled.
On Uranus, I think it was, right, Chris?
That's right. Scott's Uranus. That's where we met.
We were just two STDs on Scott's Uranus.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, shit. And we're serious about it too.
Yeah, we were very serious.
We were very serious. Yeah.
Serious joy.
No, actually, I have been having, feeling the connections. And Chris, I'm not sure. Well, it hasn't unfolded yet, but it will. Once I come stalk you in Tennessee.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
Yes.
Christopher, we had a question for you to circle back to your comment about NDEs being a way to get back on track with your life purpose. Do you mind clarifying that a little bit?
Chris, right? Or Christopher?
Oh, which one?
I think it was Christopher. Oh, no, it was Chris.
It was Chris.
So what was I talking about?
That NDEs get your life back on track.
Oh, no,
just like the show back on track.
I think that was Scott that was actually
that was me that said that. Yeah, I said that.
About that. Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, it can awaken, like we all kind of confirm that, it can awaken you to different perspectives and understanding your past life. So being that we're talking about past lives, NDEs can give you insight into that too and give you an awakening to, your power. I mean, if you have a realization and you recall, even like lucid dreaming people do and have recollections do lucid dreaming and so forth. There's so many different tools. Those are different exit points too, I would say. But yeah, I mean, a lot of these realizations are just more of the self. And I think that's how we actually can experience more of these experiences if you have a desire and hunger to know more about your soul journey.
And I think that also, like, when you die and like go to the other side, you realize you're just like a point of focus. So then whatever you focus at, you can accomplish. So that's how it ties into your purpose.
And you're everything, right?
Yeah. You come back and you're just like, oh, if I just focus in this direction, I'll accomplish whatever.
Right. And you really understand you are everything and connected to everything. That was one that was shown, even though it was an NDE, but it was in meditation, because I wanted to understand the structure of reality. I was like, I am everything. We are everything. And I understood that and understood the difference of time and what it's like to not be bound by time space. It was interesting to different meditations I've had to be shown that.
Yeah, and I want to give a little tip too. If you haven't had a hypnotherapy session, I really encourage you putting a lot of space after the session is over to go sit quietly somewhere and journal. when I came out of my hypnotherapy sessions, I still got information for hours after that.
Yeah.
And I'm very
Oh,
grateful
yeah.
that I didn't have to go straight into the car pickup line with my kids. I actually blocked space where I could sit down, and I kept recalling more. Have
The
you found
downloads.
Scott? Yes, so much more came through.
Yeah.
It actually, I think, opens up your abilities more because you trust it more.
Yeah. Yeah. The downloads don't stop when you're done. Like it goes on for a couple of days after. It's insane. It's cool. I think downloads could be realization.
Yeah,
You know?
I personally, I'm just going to throw it out there as an alternative. I will never allow myself to be hypnotized. I have my guides are very strong about that. No one has access but us, and to never create that. And the explanation was that once the pipe is open, it's open. So there's like sort of a candy coating. It's kind of what they show me energetically. And once you open that, there's a door there now. And I particularly am susceptible to, sometimes subtle energies trying to manipulate, because I'm such a giver and such a responder. So I definitely, take that free piece of candy from the strange man in the van.
Been there.
So I
that
can't
easy,
be hypnotized.
That's that easy, Christopher.
That's how I got kidnapped the first time. So yeah.
And then dropped in your head.
Yeah, exactly. And then that was the second time. Yeah.
And then there was a wall.
No, yeah.
Right. Totally. So
But I have to say, it could be different for many people. I tend to believe that, when we have a purpose, a divine purpose, we're always protected. I had some hypnotherapy sessions that accelerated my realization of my trauma and allowed me to kind of really access the trauma and kind of separate from it. So I believe when you're ready, you're ready. Right. And when you're ready to be, and, because I was surprised I was able to allow myself to be that vulnerable to do it. But it was someone who I trusted, and they actually worked for Dr. Phil. And so it actually was an experience that it accelerated a lot of realization for me. And I guess if you have a good light worker too, they're in the right essence too, to help guide you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Do your homework, check your intuition.
Yes.
Shield yourself. But there are really amazing guides out there who can walk you through it. They can bring healing in. And there's even reports of people having, you've mentioned this too, Christopher, gifts when they came back. Like they remembered something from the other realm. They could suddenly paint or play a musical instrument.
Right. I mean, if they start massaging you, want to do hypnotherapy, you might not want to do that.
That's a red flag. Yeah.
Again, no. That's interesting. Well, I'll just throw it out there because I believe in her. Pam Teague, a friend of mine in Orange County, California, is of impeccable integrity and does hypnotherapy, past life regressions. And she's a Scorpio, and she's a sacredstone.com. I just figured my guides told me to promote her right now. So if you are interested in that and you have a green light from your guides, then go for it. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So I think we go to
God.
Well, I was going to ask God, hey, God, do you know Scott Cruz?
And now, one of my consistently best dressed creations. While pride is a sin, I am always proud of this guy. Ladies and gentlemen, psychic medium Scott Cruz.
Yay!
You hear that, y'all? I'm endorsed by God. Hear that? That's the best endorsement of all. Yeah. And so speaking of like past life regressions, if you're interested in understanding about your past life regressions, I do work on that. And I also work on, understanding the connection between your past life trauma and unresolved karma, and how it's I would say resulting in this current lifetime, and how we can resolve that and connect the dots too, as Chris likes to say. So if you're interested in having a past life regression session with me, scottcruzpm.com, it's right there. It's so small on the screen. Bang, bang, bang. Don't you have a QR code? No, but you can type it in. And we can help you work through that as well. And as well, I also mediumship sessions. If you're interested in connect with those who've crossed over, I offer that as well. I could book a session there. And I just opened up for August because my July is already kind of booked out. So get your bookings in for August. How's that sales pitch?
Good.
Love it.
That was beautiful.
Beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah.
My July's all booked out.
I mean,
I was kidding.
my clients are complaining. So
Yeah.
So,
No, the
yeah.
ship's hitting the fan, man. I think there's plenty of there's a lot of people that are needing help right now, and Scott is the real deal. Actually, it was pretty.
Yeah.
It was fun hanging out actually in person and seeing his psychic powers. Tuning into whether food was in the kitchen, things like that.
Yeah, we picked up a lot of things, a lot of environmental things too. That Chris was just like, huh? I'm like, Chris, you don't see that right there? So,
Oh yeah. That's true. Yeah. He
The
had
oblivion of
hyper
a tourist.
awareness of everything wrong, actually.
Yes.
Which
Well,
is
I mean,
totally
it's
Virgo
all right.
rising.
Yes, exactly. Well, let's do shoot the shifts, right? Well,
Right.
shoot the shift. This is where we get to respond to you and your comments, right, in the chat. So let's pick out a few good ones here. What are good comments we can address here? And let's scroll here. Okay, we say, what do you guys and ladies think about people who experience hell during an NDE? And I will pop into this one. To me, hell is like a figurative, and I think hell is the absence of God, right? So if we think in that context, and so a lot of people tend to think that, oh, hell is a real place we go and we die as a punishment. And I'm like, you don't like go to hell and burn in all eternity because you had 80 years of life and didn't quite get it. It doesn't work that way. But hell's a representation that you've had this absence of God. And I always tend to think too, with NDEs, your fears also get amplified and manifest through NDEs because of unresolved. And I always say we learn the most through drama. We learn the most through chaos. And if you're just not getting it, sometimes it needs to be amplified. And so I always say, if you look at the symbology of the hell experience and what you're lacking in those experiences, that is what you need to start grabbing to in your physical awakening and your current incarnation. So I always think those dark experiences are really, really powerful and really, I would say, insightful for people to, kind of expand their soul and evolve their soul. And a lot of times, figuratively speaking, what are you laughing at? A lot of times, figuratively.
Daryl's comment.
I mean, what was that comment?
Did you see the comment? He's like, I really love Scott's psychic readings with massage.
Oh gosh, well, I mean, I try to help evolve, to eliminate the prostate cancer. So, it's a good creative. It's the creative chakra, guys.
Oh my God,
you have some creative blockages, but no, I really think that if you understand the figurative aspect of hell and understand that perhaps you're putting yourself in much torment by eliminating the God source from your life. So I would that's how I'd address that question.
Yeah,
I think that's true. I mean, I'm sorry, Dr. Eben Alexander talked about how he thought he was in hell at first. And it went really dark, and he was in this really dark, lonely space. But I think it was he himself had been struggling as a Christian or a Baptist about whether or not it was true. And so I also think that, if you think life is hell when you die, then you manifest that. Like you're in instant creativity, basically. You're living inside like Adobe program. You know what I mean? Like so.
Right.
So I think, and I remember in conversations with God, the author, asks about that. Like, what happens when, people think they're in hell? God's like, then they're in hell. And it's like, when do they come out? When they stop that, so it's pretty much when you just stop hitting yourself, you won't. So to me, it's our imagination gone wild at first, but I don't believe, there's no way you get punished for anything, unfortunately. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, yeah, that's what karma is. It's a learning curve. You know what I'm saying? Right. So that's what I believe karma is. It's not punishment. And so, that's why I think that kind of religious ideologies is more metaphoric, not so like concrete fundamental structure. I think maybe people are fearful of that. Why people don't think outside the box because they're afraid they're going to burn in hell for all eternity. I'm like, what an ideology of saying 80 years determines where you go for all eternity is kind of a shit end of the stick, if you ask me. One and done? No. Devin, what do you think? Like, you're the angelic realm, say about the hellish realm.
The angels say how patient they are when somebody transitions. And if they really want to keep putting themselves in that cycle of hell, they will protect them and sit there with them until they're willing to come out of it. So exactly what you guys are saying, it's a self-imposed hell that a lot of people will put themselves into out of fear, guilt, a lot of times shame. That's why you'll hear where people like right at the very end of their life might finally turn to God and say, "Dear God, help me," because there is that little glimmer of hope that's still in there that, this can all go away. And I've even heard people say to me, like, what if hell is where we are right now here on earth? And just like you said, it can be like the conversation with God. If you walk around with that mentality, then yeah, it definitely can be. What about you, Chris? Reck?
I agree.
Yeah, no, I think we see what we're meant to see, especially when if we have an NDE. I think if you just die, it's not like you're going to go to that place. And it's just like people say, like, who am I going to see when I go to heaven? Am I going to see like the Buddha, Jesus, whatever? I'm like, well, what did you believe in? Because that's what you're going to see. That's what you're going to see.
Right. You see things where you're at, I think, too. Like wherever you're at is what you see. So it's very telling. I think people need to be so out of this fear mentality, right? Like of punishment. There's a lot of that condemnation going on. It's just results of where you're at. You can change it. You can alter that. You can expand from it. You know, Christopher, right?
Yeah, I plan to be greeted by Steve Jobs. That's what I want to be when I go there. I got it all set up, man. It's gonna be a celebrity fest. All the coolest people that I didn't get to meet. I think it'll be a lot of. Let's not wish it too fast, okay? So, and I do think that there is hell on earth. I mean, this show, for instance. It's a perfect example of hell on earth. We just experienced it just now. We just gave it to you for free.
Devon excluded.
So funny. All right. Well, we do have to. How are we doing with time? We're doing okay. We can take one more question. There's one more question, and I thought, can a new soul come back? That was the question. Do you think it's possible people come back with a different soul?
Okay, I gotta. Okay,
that's
go ahead,
walking,
Chris.
isn't it?
Well, I think there's a story of Om Seti. She was a lady who, when she was younger, she died, and she was a kid. She fell downstairs. The doctors pronounced her dead. She came back to life, and her whole entire life, she was talking about how she's from Egypt. Like she told her parents when she was younger, "I'm from Egypt. I need to go back to Egypt." She went to Egypt. She made a ton of discoveries. This is all documented and real. They acknowledge this, and she's actually been acknowledged, recognized by the Egyptian, Society of Archaeologists or whatever. But she made all these discoveries and everything in Egypt. And she said that, when she came back, she was like a different person.
Well, okay. The terminology is bothering me. You're still the same soul. Like your soul is your awareness. You can come back evolved and have different physical experiences, and a body itself can have different souls in it. But your soul is who you are. You know what I'm saying? And so.
I think the interesting thing about her is that she was totally different. Like she came back and she was like, "Oh, I'm this Egyptian queen." This is what she told to her parents and everything. So I kind of feel like she soul swapped or something. She died and like the soul came in.
Well, that's what I want to walk in. So like,
right, it's a walk in.
Anyone want to pick? I'm selling this lifetime cheap.
I'm just saying. Yeah, but I'm just saying, I don't think the physical experiences are indicative of the soul. The observer is the soul to me. Whatever the observer is and the consciousness that's observing the physical lives is the soul. And I think that soul can hop into different experiences. Your soul is you. You can't negate that. You can grow it. You can expand it and tap into different aspects of the soul. But to me, that changing souls, that makes no sense to me. You can change bodies, and each soul experience.
That exactly the soul, like it was, one focus and a different focus, right?
Yeah, exactly. But it's still the same conscious, same soul, right? Same you. It's just a different focus of that.
Different body. The body
someone else can jump
in.
The
body change. Right? Yeah. What's that, Christopher?
Someone else could jump in and take over. That's what I thought a walk-in was.
That's a walk-in, but your soul is still you doing whatever it's doing. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm walking in somewhere else. Yeah, exactly. I'm going. Yeah, just where I'm going.
Yeah. The body's just a car, like a Lyft, driver. You can have one person habitating, someone else can come in and, but that's rare.
It seems like I haven't seen one that I was convinced of yet. I've had people who said to me, "I'm a walk-in." I'm like, really?
Yeah, right. How much change have you had in your life?
It's just like, so what were you like before? Do you have any memory? They say no. It's like, so one of those things I haven't quite figured out yet, the walk-in thing, or like, well, how that's even a thing.
Especially what were you doing 10 years ago? So you asked them, what are you doing 10 years ago? I was working at Target. What are you doing today? Working at Target? Nah, not quite a walk-in.
No, I moved to Walmart. I did. So for our psychic roulette, we have a little bit of a video to roll because we did predictions on Alec Baldwin and things came in. Adam, can we roll tape? Is there such a thing as tape anymore?
Every time I look at this, I kind of hear her in my mind, kind of saying there was somebody else. There was somebody else. There was another person, and I feel like the movie was an excuse for her murder. So yeah, there was somebody else. It wasn't the prop girl. She was a fall person. And so she understood to take the fall because I believe that she kind of been pressured too. So that's why I think she got her, her punishment, moved on. Everyone kind of forgot about it. But I think that there is another entity involved in this, and I mean, she's definitely shown that to me for sure. But what do you guys feel, psychically, intuitively, as far as his position with the whole case and the manslaughter case that he has?
I think he's going to get out of this personally, especially with that magician right there. And I also think that there's, we'll never know the truth of this whole situation, really. And there's definitely something else going on, trickster energy. And definitely. And especially when I saw that Ace of Wands, I was like, big wand right here.
That's what she said.
There you go. That's like your fifth one tonight.
Too easy for me on that one.
I set you up for that.
Ultimately, just remember, you got to watch your own back. I mean, that's what the angels are saying. We don't want to give our power away. We don't want to assume other people are taking care of us. We don't want to assume other people's motives are in alignment with ours. And they kept showing the way the energy on the set was pretty disruptive. So a lot could have happened. And they're definitely affirming we probably won't ever know. The real truth won't completely come to the surface. So learn what you can from it.
Indeed. We'll keep an eye on it. Psychically, I vote he gets away with it. And I have a feeling her husband was in on it. That's all I feel.
That's the close relationship I was talking about.
That's what I feel. Just putting out there. Okay. So we were correct.
That was like in February, right?
Whoa.
Wow.
Did God take you?
God took over.
I'm still here. I have no idea what's going on.
But we all said at that time we thought this was going to be dismissed too. We all called that out too about being dismissed, and it's been dismissed. I was like, dear,
Yeah, we'll never know. I mean, with prejudice too. So.
Yep, they can't revisit it again.
Yeah. So I knew he'd get away with it. I mean, get off.
Right.
I don't know. There's something. I still say there's something psychically fishy there, and we'll never know.
I honestly feel even the prosecution was kind of in on it too. I really feel that as well. I think there was so much well connected that was inspired by this. I think the state had some influences in his favor too. So I think there's corruption, both sides there.
There's always corruption, man.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, indeed. Someone's asking, next question is attempt on Trump, scripted, planned, or not? Well,
we already went through that, didn't we?
Yeah, we went through that pretty deep. I feel like actually, just to wrap up that topic, and then I think we got to wrap up the show, but I kind of feel like this has made him somewhat invincible at this point. Because, how do you top that? You know what I mean? And I can't believe it would happen again, 2-on-1 watch. So it'll be interesting to watch, friends.
I mean, that's what happens when you get a shooter from Temu.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, no joke.
All right, friends. Well, we will be back. That wraps up our show. We thank you for being here. It's always a pleasure. Thank you to our sponsor, CG Organics. And remember, folks, don't put up with a shift show. Lead out loud. We'll see you next week.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.